Good morning and welcome back to the Homeschool Library. As always, I'm Brad. Glad to have you aboard. So in my last video, I did let you know that I had completed my November TBR list. I'm not going to do a review of everything that I covered over the last month. If you want to know what I read, go check out that video. Some theology, good stuff, some Westerns, and the start of actually one of my favorite historical fiction series, the House of Winslow series by Gilbert Morris. The first volume deals with the Mayflower landing, everything leading up to that, from the perspective of Edward Winslow's brother Gilbert. And then the whole series continues on with his family. But I thought that would be a good one for Thanksgiving, just dealing with the Mayflower story. And it was a wonderful read. I hadn't read it in about 20 years, probably at least. So I look forward to continuing that series here in the near future. Might have to do a spotlight on some Gilbert Morris books. But what I wanted to do with this video is give you a complete review of the Sons of Texas series that I had started reading. I did do a fairly in-depth review of the first three here, the original trilogy, Sons of Texas. The byline here is by Tom Early. That is a house name for one of the great Western authors, Elmer Kelton. If you like Elmer Kelton, you will absolutely love these. Number one, Sons of Texas, and book two, Sons of Texas, The Raiders. Book three, Sons of Texas, The Rebels. These three books cover the early days of American colonization into early Texas, beginning in the early 1820s, and conclude with the aftermath of the early stages of the Texas Rebellion, the Battle of the Alamo. Wonderful trilogy. So good, actually, that the first three have been republished in recent years under Elmer Kelton's own name. Honestly, one of my favorite historical fiction series is as far as just a brief series, just those three books. Wonderful reads. I'm sad that it has taken me so long to get back into them. If you like Westerns, if you like historical fiction, if you like the history of Texas, I 100% recommend these three books. So if you want a more in-depth review of those, including some plot summaries, even some spoilers, go check out my Sons of Texas review. But I do want to give you an update on the last three of the series here. I got those. Now, these were all written by different authors. I don't know if Elmer Kelton had ever intended to continue the series. It does come to a nice conclusion. Yes, leaves it open for a sequel, so that may have been a publisher decision. I don't know. I wasn't privy to that information at the time. These started coming out in the late 80s, early 90s. But anyway, after the first three, they were picked up and continued the saga of the Lewis family in Texas by three different authors, beginning with Frank Roederus, who continued writing under the name Tom Early for just consistency's sake on this series. Book four is Sons of Texas, The Proud. This picks up in 1838. So just a couple of years, about a year and a half after book three ended. And you can tell it's a different author. You right from the opening stanza, the opening lines. Stanza is more of a song, sorry. But from the first page, you can absolutely tell it's a different author. He does well, and Frank Roederus is a very prolific Western author. If you are a fan of the Western genre, especially the old style paperbacks, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, you've probably read some of his stuff, even if you didn't know it. He wrote under a lot of house names, some of his own pen names. Solid writer. He's no Elmer Kelton. Really not. while I enjoyed the book, I really did, thrilling, riveting throughout, but it's like he couldn't capture Kelton's voice in the first three, or the characterization of the major family members of the Lewis, the Michael, the oldest of the brothers, Andrew, James, and some of the other siblings and extended family who joined the brothers in book 3, especially Michael and Andrew, the oldest two brothers, the first two that came to Texas in the early days. They were very iconic characters, and you're going to love following them in the first 3 books here. They're completely different people in book 4. And that's alluded to a little bit. For example, Andrew, now that the Republic of Texas is growing, the Mirabeau Lamar is the first, the president, kind of ousting Sam Houston. Andrew becomes a congressman. And much to the irritation of some of the other family members who comment, like, this, you've changed. This isn't you. What's going? But it's almost kind of it doesn't fully commit to that. It's like it's presented as an excuse for the fact that he can't write the people exactly the way that Elmer Kelton was writing them. He had a story he wanted to tell, and just used the people that someone else had already established. Yes, that's a criticism, but it's really my only criticism. As a continuation of the plot line, this does a fantastic job. As Andrew is in Congress, there are issues between he and an older brother, Michael, who's much more talkative and jovial than the first 3. Again, like, it keeps coming back. Very, very different characters. Andrew, all of a sudden, has very, very deep political animosity towards the Native Indian population of Texas. Especially in this book, they're dealing with the Cherokee in northern Texas, as President Lamar is trying to force them out. Andrew has become a complete government stooge. He's been won over politically by the gifts and everything. He's completely under President Lamar's thumb, which again is not the Andrew that we know and love from the first 3 books. He's totally in favor of ousting the Indians. Michael and even James, the third brother, to some extent, is they're at odds with him over this. Like, we're here, they were here, let's leave each other alone. It's the Mexicans we have to worry about. And there's a lot of very historical information that goes through, a lot of very historical events that come throughout, but they almost take a backseat to the family drama, the political drama that's going on. My least favorite of the 6 books. Again, the plot line is good. I enjoyed reading it, but it was so different in tone that I was glad to move on to the next book. Book 5, Sons of Texas, The Bold. Here, this started off great. The first chapter or so, I felt like I was back in Elmer Kelton's capable hands. This one is actually by Will C. Knott, who is another very prolific Western author. He writes, I felt, with the authenticity that Frank Roederis was missing here. It felt real. It felt visceral. It felt like a lived-in world that I had come to know, again, from the original trilogy. Again, Will C. Knott is no Elmer Kelton, but I found it much closer in tone than Book 4 by Frank Roederis. Will C. Knott is, again, he's another one of these guys, you've probably read some of his stuff without knowing it, He wrote a lot of the adult Western series like Long Arm and Slocum and some of those long running that were all written by house names. He wrote a lot of those. And that tone kind of comes through in this one. It amps up the violence. Not that there wasn't violence in the first 4 books, but this is more brutal. That I think appeals more to the tone of some of those like adult Western series. In this one, the Comanche are not. I mean, sorry, the Cherokee aren't as issue as much. Now we're dealing with the Comanche. And with this one, something that I appreciated for you Lonesome Dove fans, Larry McMurtry, we're getting into a little bit of Larry McMurtry territory here in the Lonesome Dove saga. Most specifically, the chronologically, the first couple of volumes, like Dead Man's Walk and Comanche Moon. This still takes place a little bit earlier than that. We're dealing with 1840. Right now, as the early Comanche problems are heating up between the Americans and the Southern Plains Comanche, this Buffalo Hump is a minor character in this. He's played up. I think this is when this came out, it was trying to cater to not only fans of Louis L'Amour but also Larry McMurtry. Buffalo Hump is actually built up as a major character on the back synopsis on the back of the book. He's very minor, plays a very small role in this, but it does deal with the council house fight in San Antonio in 1840, and just a lot of the degradations between the Comanche and the settlers back and forth. In here we see the origins of the Texas Rangers. There are a lot of name dropping throughout here. Many historical characters pop in and out. Certainly Mirabeau Lamar, Sam Houston is back in this one. A lot of the early Texas Rangers, Captain Parker, Sam Walker. We see the introduction of the Patterson Colt into this one. For you firearm, historical firearm Texas Ranger fans. I very much enjoyed this book more than I did book 4, but still the violent tone was amped up so much that it was a little bit off-putting in parts, especially in the first half of the book. We do see here, this was again a complete change. Almost right away, Andrew is out of Congress. See, Wilson not like, nope, I don't like that plot line, so we're just gonna decide that he quits Congress and comes back to his family. So not a lot of thread throughout there. All these different authors very much had their own ideas of the story that they wanted to tell and just kind of manufactured plot points to make that happen. There wasn't a lot of organic flow in book 4 and 5 here. I did enjoy this one. It was definitely more fun than book 4, but volume 6 is where it was very much a return to tone here. Book 6 is written by James Reasoner, who again is a very prolific author, writes more under house names than he ever does of his own. I have many different James Reasoner books. He's a great guy. If you ever talk with him on Facebook, he's very active. He's got a couple of different blogs. Big pulp fan. He's one of the greatest living, I think, pulp magazine experts. He's a collector. He knows his stuff. And he's a very, very capable writer. I read in an interview with him at some point that he said that Elmer Kelton, upon the completion and release of book 6, Elmer Kelton gave him some very high praise as far as keeping the tone. He appreciated what James Reasoner did with book 6 in keeping with the tone of those first 3 volumes. And that really does show. It's still not Elmer Kelton, but almost. He does a fantastic job of capturing the flavor and the feel of those characters, of just the writing. The authenticity is back. I'd say it's as close as you can get to capturing the flavor of Elmer Kelton without actually being Elmer Kelton. He really does a fantastic job. In book 5, we were starting to get into that kind of Lonesome Dove, Dead Man's Walk, Laurie McMurtry kind of flavor. And in this one, it's full on. We're dealing with the exact same history in this book that we dealt with in Dead Man's Walk, if you've read that one, or if you've only seen the miniseries, which is stellar, by the way. I love all of those. In the Defiant here, the Texas Rangers are back. We've got, sorry, move it to this side. I may be blocking the camera. Sorry if I did. Or maybe you'd prefer that. I don't know. And I'll say, for those of you who have read and appreciate what Laurie McMurtry did with the retelling of that story of the Dead Man's Walk, and this is a lot closer to the real history. One thing that I don't appreciate about McMurtry is, while I love his writing, he doesn't let history get in the way of the story he's trying to tell. The only time that bothers me is when I have conversations with people who just assume that what the story that they read in McMurtry's saga is the way things actually happen. And they're very clearly not. For example, in McMurtry's story, it actually irritates me the way he treats Bigfoot Wallace. One of the great early Texas greats, who was a Texas Ranger, popped up just about everywhere. Well, they have Bigfoot Wallace being killed as a result of the Black Bean incident, where the Mexican army decimates that Ranger and incursion into Texas. There's a lot of different plot lines involved in that. McMurtry screws it up quite a bit. If you want the real story, read this one. Well, Bigfoot Wallace survived the Black Bean incident and went on to do many great things in the history of Texas. And this tells you the story. It leaves it open-ended as far as Wallace is concerned, in the prison where they all were in Texas. In Mexico. It deals with the Dead Man's Walk through the eyes of some of the Lewis family. In this case, it was Jonathan, who's another younger brother who comes up later, and in some of the others who were involved in this big panoramic history of what's going on in Texas at this time. Back to what made the first 3 great as not just Western novels, but as historical fiction. That's, I think, the best way to tell historical fiction, at least it's my favorite, is to show the history of what's going on through the eyes of fictional people, rather than fictionalized historical people. I may be in the minority there. That's how I see it. But this is an absolute great return to form of the first 3. Totally sells. It sticks the landing on the series as a whole. I could have read more after this. I would have loved, personally, if they would have taken this series all the way up through, say, the Civil War, maybe even after. That didn't happen. It's still, the ending leaves the door open for more. I think the publisher just decided that they were done. Probably sales deteriorated. I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. I wasn't privy to those conversations. But what I can tell you is that this series, Sons of Texas, by 4 different authors, I'm going to highly recommend this. The whole thing, even the ones that aren't as good. If you find them all, and that's going to be a challenge, these last three. The first three you can find, absolutely go pick them up. But if you can find the last three to continue the series, if you're into Westerns, if you're into, again, the history of Texas, historical fiction at all, track them down. You might be able to find them on eBay. You probably can, but you're probably not going to find them in some bookstore unless you get lucky. I mean, very lucky, because there's not a lot of them out there. That's it for this video. I wanted to give you a full-on review of the Sons of Texas series. I've promised that to several people, and I had to deliver. So let me know what you thought. Have you read any of them so far? Did I inspire you to read any of them at all? Let me know. Again, start the conversation, and like always, we'll see you next time. Brad out.